Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced on Monday that China's expansive maritime claims across most of the South China Sea were completely unlawful, setting up potential military confrontations with Beijing and sanctions against companies as the United States seeks to push back Chinese activity in the region. Mr. Pompeo said China's years-long campaign of bullying to control offshore resources across much of the area was illegal. The announcement was the strongest and most explicit support by the Washington of ruling in 2016 by an international tribunal at The Hague that China had violated international law with its actions. Mr. Pompeo's announcement aligns U.S. policy directly with that ruling and puts Washington in a position to enforce the tribunal's decision, even though China has rejected it. The statement is not explicit on U.S. military aid, but leaves open the possibility that the United States might come to the defense of nations like Vietnam, Malaysia and the Philippines if clashes erupt because of Chinese aggression. The United States has a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines. The statement is a full-throated endorsement of the tribunal's ruling, said M. Taylor Fravel, a political scientist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology who studies China's territorial disputes and its military. But the United States is sticking to its policy of neutrality on competing claims to legitimate land features such as the Spratly Islands, he added. China and 5 other governments have competing claims to land features in the South China Sea, and China has also come into conflict with Indonesia over Chinese activity in waters by that large archipelago nation. China delineates its claims to the South China Sea with what it calls a 9-dashed line, a boundary that encompasses an area of the size of Mexico and demarcates almost the entire region. The Chinese embassy in Washington said in a statement that the U.S. government exaggerates the situation in the region and attempts to sow discord between China and other littoral countries. The accusation is completely unjustified, it added. The Chinese side is firmly opposed to it. The statement also said that China was committed to resolving disputes through negotiation. The area has potentially rich oil and gas resources, and governments often sign contracts with companies that do exploration and drilling in the region. There are also abundant fisheries. Fishing boats and Coast Guard vessels from various nations have been clashed repeatedly in recent years across the sea. Mr. Pompeo said that Beijing has failed to put forth a lawful, maritime coherent claim in the South China Sea, and so the United States was rejecting any Chinese claims to waters beyond a 12 nautical mile territorial sea derived from land features or legitimate islands. Some features that are tiny atolls and rocks built up by China are not legitimate land features and cannot be claimed by the country, Mr. Pompeo said. These include Mischief Reef and Second Thomas Shoal, which fall under the territorial jurisdiction of the Philippines, and James Shoal, which is 50 nautical miles from Malaysia. The Philippines brought the case against China in The Hague, arguing that China had violated the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, to which Beijing is a party. The big question now is what the United States intends to do about the Chinese military presence in those areas and other parts of the vast sea claimed by Beijing. Starting around 2014, China used sand dredging to expand tiny features that were covered by water during high tide into larger outcroppings, and then built airstrips and military posts atop those. Mischief Reef is one of those sites. The Chinese military warns American military planes that pass close to the reef. Since the Obama administration, the U.S. Navy has been conducting what it calls freedom of navigation operations across the South China Sea to challenge Chinese claims to the waters. But in recent months, the U.S. Navy has pushed back in other ways. In April, it sent 2 warships into waters near Malaysia as a show of force against a Chinese government ship that had been following a Malaysian state oil company ship doing exploratory drilling. Mr. Pompeo's announcement could mean more such operations by the Pentagon. Washington could also take other actions based on its new, more forceful position. Will it also sanction companies that do business with China in what are now, in the U.S.'s eyes, illegally occupied waters? Said Julian Jiku, a professor of constitutional and international law at Hofstra University. I think it probably should, but it hasn't been done so yet.
Hari Babu, President BJP, State President.